It is 6 o'clock. So we are hereby starting the Planning Commission meeting on June 28th at 6 p.m. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome on behalf of the City of Independence. Those of you who are unfamiliar with our meetings, it is the responsibility of the Commission to hold public hearings and make recommendations to the Independence City Council on matters relating to zoning, land use changes within the city. We consider and make decisions on plats, special use permits, and other issues, as well as changes in codes and policies that relate to city planning. So before we begin, let's say the Pledge of Allegiance. Will you join us? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The procedure for the commission is first, the applicant is recognized to speak on behalf of their case, followed by anyone else in attendance that wishes to speak in favor of the matter. Second, those who are in opposition or those who have questions regarding the case will be recognized to speak. Then if there was opposition or questions from the public, the applicant will be allowed to do a rebuttal period to address those concerns and questions. Once the applicant is finished, the chair will declare the public hearing portion of the case closed, and further comment from the public will not be recognized. At this point, the commissioners will have the opportunity to discuss the merits of the case with one another. During this discussion, the commission reserves the right to ask questions of all parties concerned. Finally, the commission will render a decision on the case. Because this is the only public hearing of the cases on the agenda tonight, all those who wish to speak will be heard. All comments and questions should be addressed to the chair, not directly to the applicant or staff. The chair also requests that statements be kept brief and on point, and if the statement has already been made by a previous speaker, please do not repeat it. Simply indicate your agreement on the matter. So to expedite tonight's meeting, all those who wish to speak tonight, will you please stand so you can be sworn in? Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the whole truth before this commission? If so, say I do.
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated. Okay, our first case, actually, roll call, sorry.
Commissioner Ferguson.
Here.
Commissioner Michelle.
Here.
Commissioner Nesbitt.
Here.
Commissioner Young.
Here.
And Chairman McLean.
Here. Okay, one more thing. Well, everybody make sure your phones are on silent before we begin so that we don't have that interruption. Commissioners as well. Let me double check mine. Yep, I'm good. Okay. Our first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Everybody take a minute to look at your minutes. Does anybody have any
I make
changes?
a motion.
Go ahead.
Can I make a motion? We go ahead and approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Motions, is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. Okay, we're ready for a vote.
Commissioner Ferguson.
Yes.
Commissioner Michelle.
Yes.
Commissioner Nesbitt.
Yes.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Chairman McLean.
Yes. The consent agenda has passed. Case to be continued. Continued case 22-100-06. A request by Joe Bartlett to rezone this property from C1 to C2 to C3 will be continued to, I believe it's July 12th. Okay. So is there a motion?
Is this the second time he's continued? Is there a problem that we need to know about? Is there a problem we need to know about, or is it?
He was not able to send out his letters like he was supposed to.
Oh, okay. I was just trying to figure out why, this second time, I'm trying to figure out why we keep continuing. I think he'd want to get it done, so.
Good question. Okay, I would take a motion.
Okay, I make a motion that we continue case, don't even have a case number, there it is, yeah, 22-100-06.
Yep. Second. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Michelle,
Yes.
Commissioner Nesbitt,
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
and Chairman McLean.
Yes. Continued case 22-100-06. We will hopefully have it before us July 12th. Okay, public hearings. Our first one is case 22-100-05, rezoning of 8712 East Winter Road. Staff report, please.
There we go. Again, this is case 22-100-05. You can see on the vicinity map, this is right near our city limits, near Blue Ridge and US 24 Highway. That's 8712 East Winter Road. The applicant is Grand Property Enterprises, LLC. And they're requesting to rezone the property from C2 general commercial to C3 service commercial. There we go. And so looking at the zoning here, you can see the property actually sits half in Kansas City and partially in Independence. You can see the pink outline of the portion that's in Independence and includes basically all the building or nearly all the building. This whole entire property is surrounded by a existing metal opaque fence that goes around the perimeter. You've got residential properties to the north behind this building, as well as some residential zonings along 24 as well to the east, and some underutilized commercial buildings there to the north as well as in Kansas City, and some commercial businesses to the south across 24 Highway. Comprehensive plan doesn't see this as a commercial area for the long term. We have some neighborhood commercial designated. I believe that's an old steakhouse that's up there. I can't remember exactly what's there at to the northwest, where you can see the pink there. But the plan calls for this area to be residential neighborhoods and remain and those residents around this area to be maintained as such. So this aerial shows the property a little better. So you can see the perimeter fence if you look closely all around the property. And then there's a gate that's in the Kansas City portion where you gain entry with vehicles. The front door of the building is right in front of a pull-off area in the right-of-way of 24 Highway. And then there's a big, mostly dirt, driving surface, storage surface within the fence and next to him behind the building. The applicant, Joseph Saida, requests to rezone this property, again, from C2 to C3. This tract is 25,000 square foot with an existing metal building that fronts the property near the right-of-way. And as I said, has an unimproved surface along the MoDOT right-of-way. Encircling the lot is the unpaved area that, at least in the Independence portion of the property, any business license for a use there would include the need for him to require the proper parking and storage area for the activity that will occur there. The applicant wishes to service heavy trucks, semi truck cabs, basically. So municipal services would require approved plans for stormwater runoff and for pollutants to be properly directed and mitigated. According to the applicant, the heavy truck repair operation would involve diesel engine repair work. The UDO describes general motor vehicle repair as auto body repair and painting, engine overhaul and replacement, transmission repair and replacement, and the repair of or servicing of commercial vehicles or heavy equipment. Customers generally do not wait on the premises for their repair to be completed, and the vehicles may be left overnight. So this use would not be allowed in the current C2 zoning, and thus the applicant seeks to rezone the property to C3 to allow that heavy vehicle repair servicing use. So before I go through the recommendation, I'll go through the pictures of the vicinity. And of course, here's a drawing of what I described momentarily ago and what you saw in the photograph. Okay, this is the right-of-way, basically, of a US 24 highway. Most of that is right-of-way anyway. And you can see the bit of sidewalk that the state has provided, and then there's the roadways off a little bit to the right. So this is the front of the structure. This is all in Independence. You're looking at what's mostly in Kansas City with this picture, looking to the northwest. And of course, this is looking down the road into Kansas City to the west, down 24 Highway. And a business in Kansas City to the southwest. And then these are businesses in Independence right across the street to the south. And this is looking back east down US 24 Highway. Staff does not recommend approval of this zoning request, and for the following two reasons. Number one, the applicant's requested C3 zoning would allow a much broader array of uses, particularly intensive commercial and light industrial type uses than just the requested heavy truck repair use. And the comprehensive plan, again, envisions residential established neighborhood uses. And the second reason, the applicant anticipates no new building construction, and the applicant's needed use cannot be conditioned by the zoning to include restrictions and the needed modifications to the unimproved property. Property modifications such as, but not limited to, require parking, drive entrances over the sidewalk, stormwater mitigation, fire protection, and environmental protections required by city code could only be enforced by a business license permit, change of use permit, or any other permit issued by the city. So that concludes. Okay. The C3 district is intended to accommodate heavier commercial activities and limited warehousing and manufacturing operations that are typically not found in or compatible with mixed-use or neighborhood-oriented environments. The staff is not supportive of the zoning request, as the proposed zoning and use would not be compatible with the existing uses and the character of the area.
Thank you. I was actually going to ask if you would read that, just to refresh. Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions of city before
I
we?
do.
Go ahead.
Okay, Brian, okay, what is the building to the right? Is that an apartment there, or is that another business that's on that picture right now? That'd be looking east, I'm thinking.
That brown?
Yeah.
The brown one?
I think, I'm trying to remember, I think there may have been at one time commercial on the bottom. I think it's just, I think there's just stuff stored there now.
There's a what now?
I think the bottom floor is not currently being used for a business, but that's basically business
Okay.
usage on the bottom and apartments above.
That's what, okay.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. There's
Okay.
apartments above. Yeah.
Okay, so it is
Now,
apartment.
so it would be a legal non-conforming situation given the zoning. There is not commercial, but is in fact residential at that location, I believe.
For the bottom part.
Well, for the whole thing, because it's,
Oh, got it.
I believe it's probably, I believe it's R12. Yeah, it's R12, so it would be duplex zoning. So, yeah, it's a legal non-conforming use.
Now, the Kansas City part, do we know what it's zoned for there?
No, I do not know their zoning.
Okay, so we don't know if it's already zoned commercial for them, or we don't know what's not on their part of the property.
I do not know their zoning.
Okay.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question.
Yeah, so I like to stay with Kansas City, because, he'd probably have to go to Kansas City, but maybe not, because it looks like to me, all it is dirt, like you said. So there's nothing really there, right? No building or anything on that piece of property?
I do know the applicant has talked to Kansas City, Missouri, and the business licensing division, actually talked to the person in Kansas City, Missouri that the applicant had talked to.
Okay.
I wasn't able to talk to a city planner, but I did talk to somebody in business licensing.
Okay.
And my understanding was that they were okay with what was planned for that location.
Okay. We'll wait and see what the applicant says.
Okay. Will the applicant come up, please? State your full name and address.
My name is Joseph Saida. I live at 10606 North Willow Avenue in Kansas City, Missouri. Oh, sorry.
We hear you really well, but
You gotta forgive me, I'm not a public speaker, okay? Okay, my name is Joe Saida. I reside with my wife and 12-year-old son at 10606 North Willow Avenue, Kansas City, Missouri.
thank you.
I do have a handout. Can I hand this out to you guys?
Sure.
If you could just make that part of the record, just introduce it into the record.
Yes.
for the-
So we were handed by the applicant a handout pertaining to 8700 East Winter Road.
Yes.
Can you kind of tell us what is in this packet that we're seeing, please?
Okay, first of all, the first part of this packet is a Google map, the first page of it. And is what I'm trying to show here is there's a lot of scattered use through here. It's not all residential by a long shot. The scattered uses, there's a lot of automotive use across the street. There's a liquor store right across the street from here. There's a catty corner to it. There's a tire store. There's a repair shop, machine shop. There's mostly automotive right in this area that straddles Kansas City and Independence. And I did talk to Kansas City. Kansas City is okay with my use. They're willing to give me a business license for the use in Kansas City part of it. So if you look here, it kind of tells all the different businesses that are through that area, this first page. Do you mind if I tell you a little bit about myself?
Go ahead.
I grew up in Raytown and have been a lifelong resident of Independence in Kansas City. I no longer live in Independence because my wife wanted to move closer to her family. It's the only reason. I am committed to a strong working relationship with the Planning Commission and the Planning Commission staff. Most of my commercial real estate holdings are in Independence. Or you would say my 401k is in Independence. So I'm currently working on a project at 3448 Sterling, completely redoing that building that's right on the corner of Sterling and 35th Street that's been in terrible condition for many years. We completely gutted it and completely redoing it. And we just finished a project at 9300 East 40 Highway, completely renovated it and got it rented out. We also have the one at 3448 rented out as soon as it's finished, by the way. So I'm not looking to just get this deal and move out of Independence. I'm going to be here for the rest of my life. The comprehensive plan that they're talking about does envision residential neighborhoods for the subject property. This is the quote that they recommend for this application. Respectfully, I cannot envision ever in the next 50 years having residential where this property is. I mean, the two houses that are behind this property that are in the, would that be the west? There's two houses that are in really terrible condition. They're rental houses. And most of the houses along here are not taken very good care of. I mean, I'd like to say that the neighborhood is improving. And the truth of the matter is, if you agree with me to do this, I'll make my property look a lot better. I mean, where you see grass and stuff in the back of this property, this was all gravel. It has been sitting vacant for over 2 years because I've been trying to find a tenant for it. This property down right through that area is very hard to rent. And I finally found a gentleman that is willing to rent it with some type of a commitment for a long-term commitment and not just put like, I don't want like a basic something that's going to be gone in a year in there. Now, I will tell you, the gentleman that I have, when you think of semi-truck repair, he does this already. It's mobile maintenance. He does not do like semi-truck repair. He does mobile maintenance on semi-trucks where they are. So all he wants is a place to bring a truck in, do the mobile maintenance. He does oil, he does filters, he does all the basic stuff on a truck. He does not do like diesel repair, any kind of major overhauling of anything. And the basic part of it is, actually, the trucks would not be parked in Independence at all. If they were in Independence, they would be in the building in Independence. They would not be parked in Independence. So in my words, I kind of feel that this is kind of an automotive type area through here where this is where this is. I've owned this property for 15 years and it's had automotive up until the lawn care place that I put in here a few years ago that went out of business. It's had automotive in it the whole time. Over the years, I've spent a lot of money in improvements on this property. I know it doesn't look like it from the pictures, but if I clean it up and paint it, it's really a nice building and it's in good condition. And it has big doors in it, so it's very good for what this man wants to do with it. I'm trying to do the right thing by submitting this zoning. Like I say, Kansas City told me that they would approve the use of this, but I really would like the man to get a business license in the city of Independence. He really has to get a business license in the city of Independence to use the building, and that's what I want him to do, because I feel like you guys I'm out to I want to promote business in Independence, and that's where I'm coming from. In the packet y'all have, I've got a few buildings that we've renovated. The La Fuentes on 40 Highway, we've renovated that, leased it, sold it. The planning and zoning just went through that we renovated 9300 East 40 Highway, and we have a tenant in it now. And we did everything that the planning and zoning and the city council told me to do, and it all went through with no issues. I renovated 3608 to 3619 Nolan Road. That building sat vacant for several years, the whole deal. We've renovated it. We put 3 tenants in that building. I brought 2 of those tenants from Kansas City to Independence to put them in there. So I've tried to bring people here. I bought the building at 600 North High Street. It had been sat and vacant for about 3 years after that company went bankrupt across the street. We put a new roof on it. We've done lots of work as far as just basic work, but we repaved the parking lot. We probably spent $50,000 on the building, and we rented it to Santa Fe Glass, and they have their warehouse in there. 10529 and 10531 East 40 Highway is right across the street from Gates Barbecue. And we went through and we completely restuccoed that building, put a new roof on it. We've done lots of work on it over the last few years. And actually the gentleman I'm renting it to is JR Construction and the roofing company. They're in the midst of buying it from me. So they're going to take that to another level because they're going to be owners of it. So they're going to buy it. I own the shopping center I bought at 12521 East 40 Highway. It used to be called Williams Plaza. It's right next to O'Reilly's right there. That property had absentee owners for 10 years, and it was in terrible condition. I probably spent close to $250,000 renovating that property. I have 2 of my own businesses in there, and I'm getting ready to lease another space, and I have Family Dollar in there. I renovated 1150 Sterling. It sat vacant for many years after, what was it? There was a equipment company in there. It sat vacant for at least 5 years. We went in and completely remodeled that building. I moved a business that I was renting to in Kansas City on 9th Street. I moved it into that building, and they have 8 employees now. And I mean, good jobs, good paying jobs.
Mr. Said, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I really appreciate what you've done. Your integrity of the building sites is not in question. What we have to decide is this the right zoning for it? So.
Well, the only part to what I'm trying to say is I'm not going to put somebody in something in Independence that doesn't belong there. What I'm trying to say is I'm going to put, I could have rented this building out multiple times. I didn't do it. I do feel like I have the right person for it, but there is a problem with the zoning on it. Everything that goes on in this building is behind a tall steel fence. So, the thing about it is they would give them a license for cars, but the man does mostly semi-trucks. And so I came to the city, and I'm being honest with the city. I want to do the right thing and get the right zoning to accommodate him, because I don't want him to have a problem with it. And I'm going to own the property for probably the rest of my life. So in that being said, I said enough probably, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask me anything you want to know.
Well, there might be some questions, though.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I appreciate all you've done. Anybody have any questions of the applicant? Oh, okay. All right, you're free to sit down, and we'll call you back up if we do.
Okay. Again, I want to. This is not repair. This is not a diesel repair. This is maintenance, and it's mobile maintenance now. So he's not going to do any more than he does now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, let me. Is there anybody here who would like to speak for this case? Is there anybody here who would like to speak against this case? Hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public portion of this hearing, and commissioners, feel free to ask staff or.
Okay. Brian, back to this area here then. So right now it's approved for C2, so they can do commercial repairs and stuff for cars, like he was stating, correct?
Light
Light.
repairs, so they
Okay.
couldn't do pull engines and transmissions and things like that.
But we don't know if they could do that inside the building. We would never know that probably. That's one thing. And that's basically what this is area. And when he has talked to Kansas City, and they already approved, if they have to, approve it for C3 C3, if that's, do they do the same zoning as us?
Like I said, I don't know what their zoning is. I've just talked to business licensing, and I know that they're okay with this use.
Okay. So I'm thinking the way he's talking is that it's probably best as we do this. That way, like I say, he did come to the city for this to make it happen. So I'm thinking it should go for that because, like you said, it is behind a building. I can't see anything in the future coming that way either. If he's going to own it for 50 years, it's not going to go residential. And like he said, I think down through there is a lot of businesses still there, and I don't see any problem with doing what he's wanting to do there. I think that's probably a good thing. That way, he does bring business to us. Now, Brian, back to if we go C3, can we make him, improve the parking lot or anything like that?
Well, like I said in the staff report, we're limited to putting those hooks into the business license and the change of use permit or any other permit he pulls. And we can't connect it to the zoning itself.
Can't connect the zone, but we can connect it to the business that they would have to like pave the lot and pave the parking area and stuff like that. That's the way I understand it.
Yes.
Okay.
My concern is changing it to C3 changes the dynamic of the whole thing. And if for some reason he didn't have it for 50 years, it could have a whole nother use that then doesn't jive with our strategic plan at all. I hate this line that we have. I wish we could get together and figure out like these properties that cross lines, we could agree upon what the zoning looks like between us and Kansas City. That'd be fantastic. But I don't know, I'm nervous about it. Any other thoughts?
I looked up the Kansas City zoning. It's a combination of B3, which I couldn't readily pull up what that means, but it's a combination of business and residential zoning there as well. So I would just ask you, Brian, is there anything, if the property was in a different condition, if the lot was already paved, if the parking, the parking was marked for accessible parking, some of these things that you had mentioned here in your report, if that stuff was already done, would your opinion be different?
I think we have actually an issue with the use as well as the upgrading that he would have to do as well. So there's two parts to that.
Because of the residential?
Because it's a comprehensive plan issue.
It's a zoning issue, right?
Well,
Yeah.
they're basing that on the comp plan.
Yeah, well, it is it is several issues. You've got is this the right fit for the future of that corridor in terms of that comprehensive plan zoning, as well as, the conditions are what the conditions would be, but, that's primarily that reason, what happens in the future with this site.
How do we stop the blight that goes on in that area?
I think this is one of those times the comprehensive plan doesn't line up with what's really
Right,
the realistic.
Realistically, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Can I say one more thing? I will be.
You have to come to the podium.
Madam Chair, you may want to reopen the public hearing to take additional testimony.
Okay. I'm going to reopen the public hearing so that we can ask you more questions.
Okay, I would be more than happy to pave the lot. I actually told Mr. Harker that whatever it took to, as far as putting a handicap parking space in it, or paving that front part of it, or paving part of the lot, I'll even go as far as, which the Kansas City's not asking me to do, I would pave that part of the lot where he would park trucks when they came in. That would not be an issue. I would be more than happy to do that. And I will clean this property up and make it look a lot better. Obviously, if I have rents coming in, I will have some income coming in to clean it up. So that would help me immensely. And I will be honest with you, the gentleman that I have is like a 25-year-old man, and he's looking to be here. He's not looking for some quick thing to, he's been in business with his uncle for, I think approximately, he's been doing this since he was like 15 or 16 years old. So, him and his uncle are in business together, And so I don't have a bit of issue with trying to upgrade the property if you guys tell me, well, listen, we would do this, but we want you to put a handicap parking space. We want you to put asphalt here. I don't have a bit of problem with that. I don't have a bit of problem with trying to work with you through whatever problems we have.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, and Brian, I'm asking this as a clarifying question. Unfortunately, we cannot condition this approval or, in order to, and I'm not saying you're misrepresenting anything, but we can't guarantee that that is going to happen because we can't tie conditions to an approval. Is that correct, sir?
Not to the zoning approval.
Not to the zoning. I mean, I would agree with you, Bryce, that the comp plan is not in alignment with what is happening in this area. I know this area really well. It needs some assistance, but in absence of, with the comp plan being something different and being aligned with what's happening in the neighborhood, I feel like our hands are tied.
I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing so that we can discuss this further. They're conferencing, so.
So they're conferencing whatever they can do legally, I think. I mean, because he has done quite a bit around Independence, looks like made some of these places look better that
Yeah,
he
no
bought. So,
question.
yeah.
No question.
Yes.
So just to add a little insight here, Rick and I have had several discussions along these lines. I think the issue from the planning department standpoint is not necessarily that you can't place conditions on a rezoning. I think it's really an enforcement issue. So I'm kind of looking at Rick to jump in and correct me if he disagrees. So I guess we probably could place conditions. The city council would ultimately do it. You would make a recommendation. Place conditions on the rezoning, and then I think when they come in to pull the building permit or building license or whatever they need to get, the permit issue, if those conditions then are sitting there on that rezoning, I think then you have a mechanism to enforce those conditions. Now, if you place conditions on a rezoning and then there's no building license or a building permit, business license, anything required, then I think Rick's point is well taken that there's not an enforcement mechanism there. But in a situation like this where it sounds like the tenant is going to have to come get a business license, and if there are conditions on the rezoning, then I think we get there through that mechanism. I want to explore that a little bit more.
Yeah, and I do want to point out too, it isn't just the parking. We are also talking about fire protection, sprinkler systems potentially, as well as environmental grease separators, and as well as stormwater mitigation. So it's not just parking. So I do want to kind of remind the commission that there are other outstanding issues with that C3 zoning in the use.
If approval was placed on this particular case for rezoning with conditions, does it apply only to Mr. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Saida, sorry. Or is that just conditions that are tied to this parcel in perpetuity?
Well, and I think that's kind of the issue, is that these conditions wouldn't necessarily apply to somebody in the future. Let's say, for example, he sold a property, whatever would be allowed in C3 would be allowed on that site.
So to that point, you could either you could approve, the C3, if it's sold, anybody can do anything that's allowed under C3. The tenant could have a catastrophic issue with their family and sell their business, go out of business, move out of town, whatever it might be. Anybody else that comes in can do anything that's tied to that C3 zoning at that point.
Correct.
So there's really no guarantees at this point.
That's correct.
So I still continue to go back to the comp plan, and I don't think the comp plan aligns with what is happening in reality on 24 Highway really anywhere from this point, east or west. I mean, you are going a certain distance away from, in all directions before you hit anything residential along 24 Highway.
Well, I do also want to point out too that what we do have along that corridor though is C2, which does allow the light automotive, which is the oil and tire changes and windshield type glass replacement and that type of thing, cleaning. So that is the predominant zoning along the 24 Highway corridor is at C2.
But for C2 zoning, you cannot store vehicles overnight. Much like any auto repair store or shop, you come in and you're getting repaired and the vehicles are going, no outside storage.
Correct. That's right. Yeah.
Plus all of the oil changing and the separators like you talked about, right? Is that different?
That would still be part of.
C2?
You could do it in a C2. You would still have to get the changes to the building though for that. So that would have to be part of like a business license approval. Normally, see, the real issue here is we don't have a building permit. If we don't get a building permit, the only way to do any kind of enforcement is through a business license or a change of use permit. Typically, your enforcement mechanisms kick in when you have a building permit that does require, which, again, this is that issue of conditioning just the zoning, because can you really just apply it to this one particular case, because that may not be the case in the future.
Well, did we not do one last time? We went from C2 to C3 on Truman Road where they were a lawn care place, and so
we did.
And then basically he could turn around and sell the property and it's already zone C3, so then they could do heavy commercial stuff there. So,
there is, but I believe there was common zoning across the street from there. And
well,
of
I
course
understand that, but
wasn't-
I'm just saying, we did that, and we didn't even bring up this question about the heavy trucks and stuff for future, because, I mean,
Yeah.
in the future, it could be sold and be something else, so, I mean, that's where I'm saying, I think this corridor, right, this area is also suited for the C3 or outdoor, because, I mean, this would be like the third one, because we did another one on 24 on up that they're going to put, I think, pipe trucks or something on up 24 that we did, and
Wasn't that a C2?
they went to C3 because they're going to store vehicles outside. So, but we're just now, I mean, it'd be the same scenario as what they're doing because they're putting semis outside. That's the whole deal right there.
I know we had approved, this might have been before you had joined the commission, but there was the old car wash on 23rd near the railroad tracks at Chrysler. That one was rezoned for heavy truck use, heavy truck repair. More, it was a certain size of truck.
Right.
But I don't recall what the adjacent zoning was on that one.
Well, and it's also a little confusing because a lot of these rezoning things that come up, we're not supposed to care about what's going in there, right?
Right.
Because that's come up. Like, the things that we're supposed to be concerned about as planning commission, like we're not supposed to care about what goes in there.
Does it fit the neighborhood? Does it fit the plan?
Yeah.
Right.
So,
My opinion, I think C3 does fit the area. I've seen the way I see the area. I mean, I don't see any problem because they're going to put stuff outside because he already said can't see, says it's okay. So he's just on that side. They'll park him on that side. I mean, I can't see him not parking them on that side and doing the work over there. It's just that, like you say, it's right down the middle where the line is. So I'd rather see us go ahead and get to business because we need some business.
Any more questions or thoughts or comments or questions for anybody?
so just to be extra clear with the Kansas City versus Independence, so the red and yellow even north of that is Independence, right? So that,
The part that has no color is in Kansas City.
say that again?
The part that has no color shading at all is what's in Kansas City. So Independence wraps around.
So we can't
North
even
side
have
there.
a street be a cutoff.
Yeah, the lines are bad.
So to the north, we do already have C2. To the south, we have C2.
Yes, to the northwest and to the south.
Madam Chair, I make a motion.
Okay.
I make a motion that we go ahead and approve case, and our letter is wrong. Ours says 21, so that's a type error on ours, but I'm sure it's 22, right? I just want to make sure. She pointed that out.
Yes, the
Before you
case
make the
number
motion,
is-
Are you wanting
is
to
22.
Are you wanting to add provisions or, I mean,
I think we need to discuss, if there is going to be conditions, those need to be discussed before the motion's made.
Okay, then
yeah.
let's get the provisions down then. Well, I think you stated it better, Paul. I'll let you do that.
I'm still weighing,
Oh, you're still weighing?
I'm still weighing whether or not
Okay.
in
Well, then
approving
I
this.
make a motion on case 22-100-05 that we do approval with conditions of, with the, I want to say, the business license, that they go ahead and meet city codes for C3. Is that what it is, Brian? Rick, sorry? Yeah, for C3.
Yeah,
That's it.
UDO requirements.
Yeah, UDO requirements. That sound fair?
Does that sound good, Counselor? You gonna make it pretty?
So the intent is anything that's out of conformance with the current code needs to come into conformance?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, that works.
More than the UDO, it'd be the whole code, because the environmental code and building code. and
All adopted codes in effect as of today's date.
The accessible parking, stormwater runoff,
Yeah, all the
Pollutants.
stormwater and all that, yes, all that they recommend, the city recommends.
And I'm just going to throw this out there before we move that forward. Is there anything that says, you know, the portions of C3 that city staff is concerned about would only be allowed in Kansas City, outside the limits of this parcel? I just thought I would ask.
Okay, I got the motion. Anybody gonna second it?
So let me just caution everybody
Okay.
that, I mean, there's been a long-standing kind of tradition around here to not condition, or at least recommend conditions on rezoning. So I'm going to have to work with the planning department, you know, between now and city council to just work through, you know, whether or not there really is an enforcement mechanism there. Because, again, I think what I've heard from the planning department is the concern is that there's not an enforcement mechanism.
I
So I think we go ahead and make the condition, but just know that there might be some
there's
limitations.
some
on it.
working through things to do.
Right.
Is there, to your point, Counselor, can we also condition it such that, one, all adopted codes will be adhered to as a subject of the rezoning, but also that to the city's satisfaction, there is some sort of an enforcement mechanism established?
Contingent on.
I mean, that's exactly the problem. There really is no mechanism, because, you know, what I think we've heard from the applicant is the only permit or license that, or anything that needs to occur is a business license for the tenant.
Right.
So it's not even the developer that needs to come in and
Doesn't
pull
need
a
anything.
permit. So that's the challenge we have here, is what to tie it to. And I don't know that we have a recommendation right now.
Can one of the conditions be that the business license is pulled? That gives us, I mean, if that is how we're going to enforce the,
Well,
what needs to happen to be a successful.
is the intent that a business license cannot be pulled until all the code requirements are met? I mean, is that the intent of the board?
Well,
That would be the
Commission.
normal sequence. You can't apply for a business license if the property's not ready to operate.
Well,
That's a question more for city staff.
Typically,
it would,
On a new development, you would be tying this to the building permitting process, and you'd be making them comply with all our code requirements when they built a new development. Here, it's an existing facility. So, I mean, you have some pretty significant challenges here tying it to all codes. For instance, stormwater. Are they going to have to go in and do a stormwater analysis and redo their stormwater infrastructure? I don't know the answer to that, but I think by tying it to all codes, that's really what you're asking here.
It would be all adopted codes, which is nothing different than anybody that's going to pull a building permit.
For a new development.
Well, even a renovation, or a change of use.
A complete renovation?
A renovation and a change of use that is going to require, then you start having a lot of other things that are going to be triggered, like, verifying compliance with stormwater, verifying compliance with the UDO, the building, building code, energy code, mechanical code, plumbing code, electrical code. All of those things would then if it's.
So the way it would kind of flow would basically be the same way as if if a property owner was doing something that wasn't allowed. We would basically tell them your business license doesn't allow that use, and here are the things you'd have to do, and we would have to make them pull a building permit to make those changes. So,
does this qualify as a change of use?
Well, it would be a change of use anyway, but for this, say for example, it were to be approved and he moved forward and did some kind of heavy auto repair and didn't do the proper improvements to the building, fire protection or whatever, that would then trigger we would shut that business down until they actually submitted the appropriate plans and permit to make that building successful in that operation, provided it was a proper zoning for the use.
But now that places a burden on city staff to be the watchdog or a concerned resident that is the watchdog to file a complaint, which is what would trigger.
Correct.
The cease and desist for lack of better terms.
Correct. And we've had that issue before where somebody was operating certain things like a paint booth without the appropriate environmental and fire protection, and we've had to shut that business down, and so they can either cease to operate as such or get the appropriate zoning approved, and assuming it was in the right zoning, then they would still have to then come back with a building permit to make the appropriate improvements. So we've had those types of situations, but usually they're on the enforcement side.
So the reason I'm being cautious in this recommendation is I don't want you to vote to approve this on the basis that we're going to be able to enforce this condition. In other words, if you're inclined to vote against it, unless this condition is placed on it to come into compliance with all codes, because I can't sit here and tell you that we can find a mechanism to enforce that condition.
And again, you approve a C3 zone, a change to C3, and then we're in a position to say anybody could come in there without having to renovate the property and operate a business in a C3 zone.
As long as it's an allowed use.
As long as it's an allowed use, and they don't necessarily have to pull a building permit to do the changes.
Correct. They would have to pull a business license.
Business license only. So then we're trying to tie it to the business license, which is a requirement. You can't operate a business in the city limits of Independence without a license.
It's
But again, I
interesting.
think maybe the issue is, and I just don't know this, does the city have those mechanisms set up to enforce these kind of requirements in the business license world? That's what I don't know. Rick's looking at me like he's.
Well, I was going to say, it is just part of the code. If the business license if somebody's operating the business and it can't operate as it is, then it would just be an enforcement under our code. It would just It would
Just
basically
code
be,
enforcement.
it would just be like a
Community development
court
code
summons
enforcement.
type of thing if the applicant didn't resolve it. So,
Just imagining driving, getting off 435, getting on 24. You pass your gas station, you pass your tire shop, you pass your liquor store. You would then ideally pass a semi-repair, and then the Jesus Saves house is a few houses down from that, and somehow it all makes sense to me. It all fits. So,
Point taken.
well, and Ronnie, that's the purpose
That
of
sums it
that
up
master
perfectly.
plan, to try to mitigate that in the future. That's the
Yeah.
purpose.
Okay, so are we making a motion with?
And I
Yeah.
think your public hearing may still be open.
No,
No,
she
she
closed
closed
it.
Did you close it the
She
second
closed it.
time? Okay, I missed
I
it.
made the motion with the
Yeah,
stipulation.
yeah, to that point, I'm sorry, I keep belaboring this, because I want to make sure we're doing this as right as we possibly can.
Right.
Because there's a lot of gray here. We can't necessarily tie it to a building permit, because we don't know if one will need to be pulled. The only thing we can tie this to is the business license itself, which we know is required. And it will be a matter of conforming to the applicable adopted codes that would apply to this particular business operating. Okay.
We just don't know if it's enforceable, right?
We know that they have to pull a business permit, a business license.
Right.
But we don't know that you got the teeth in the business license to make them do those things.
Well, and that's kind of the concern.
rub.
I mean, like I said, ultimately, again, this is the this is the catch-22. If it's an allowable use, then they could do what it is they're wanting to do if it's in the proper zoning. But by default, we would have to tell them you're going to have to make improvements, because you even though you're allowed to do it, under our other codes, you can't do it because the building needs improvements or changes, I should say, for, all the fire protection and environmental protection and that sort of stuff. So, I mean, I'm guessing without really belaboring the code, that would be our only enforcement mechanism, is in order to achieve your appropriate business license, you have to make sure that it meets all the other codes. So we would really be enforcing, rather it being like a building permit, we'd be enforcing it through the business license permit.
And to the attorney's point, though, there is more research to be done. And again, I don't typically follow the cases when they leave the planning commission and go to city council. But will part of that process also be additional staff report to city council, or is it taken at face value from the planning commission to city council? If you were to research what the enforcement measures would be and have new information to share, would that be made available to city council, or are they going to take our recommendations at face value and move on?
I was going to say, typically they're no new information. However, I mean, I think it would end up falling with this commission making a recommendation to council and council accepting that recommendation.
Not to throw a monkey wrench in the whole thing, but would there be an advantage to continuing this case so that we could recommend back to you to,
Or they could come to us with additional
yes,
information.
you could come to us with additional information, we can call Kansas City and scream at them, or,
I mean, we can certainly,
I don't know, is that easier? Because I feel like we're trying to fit a round ball through a square hole, and it's just not fitting.
I was going to say, we'd certainly talk with our council and see what those mechanisms would be.
Well, our motion would make the recommendation that the codes be met. That's what would go to the city council. City council would discuss it, If Ricky's is saying new information, he'd bring it up at that time, and then the city council would vote on it. That's what happens, in my opinion, correct, Rick? So that's how you'd research it and tell the city council about that.
I heard that there would not, there will not be a report.
He would give them a report.
Yeah, I
New
mean,
information,
we
he was
would, but we would base that based on the recommendation of this
From
commission.
the commission.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
And they're going to see your recommendation
right,
of having the condition.
right, having the condition, that's what they'll see that.
But there wouldn't be necessarily new information.
But we're making a recommendation on an incomplete picture. Because we don't know what the second half of this is
Right.
going to be.
Right, and like I say, I know, Rick, when they ask you, is there any new information, that's when you bring up the new information.
Yeah, typically the new information is going to be if a applicant wishes to change something or we have discovered some new information between
Well, that's
now
what-
and then. But again, it would, I would think for the purpose of this particular case, it would need to be, I wouldn't necessarily want to add new information that's just researched without you guys, this commission knowing what that is. Does that make
Because
sense?
this is a zoning change.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've got, the other concern I have is if we approve it with with conditions, it goes to city council denies it, then it becomes a new case, and our friend here who's trying to improve the community is going to have to start all over again.
That would be true, yes.
So would it not be better, unfortunately, there is a delay here, but to try to run this to ground to make the best decision possible with, you know, in what the city can and cannot do, rather than to push this through and put us all in a position to have to, and the applicant included, to start over again potentially.
Madam Chair, I remove my motion,
You're taking it back?
taking it back, that's what we gotta do, because we haven't voted on it yet.
Yeah.
So it's
Or there's no second either.
Yeah, there's no second, so I'll make a motion, we table this to the next meeting until staff can,
Well, that's a continuation request that the applicant would have to make.
I think-
to a certain,
table it for,
well, that I don't know, but it seems like it's a continuance to a certain date, and the question is, we don't know what that date is. I guess we can continue to continue it, but I would like the feedback from city staff as to what the right procedure is.
right,
And ultimately, we're trying to find a path forward because I think we all recognize that this particular area would be a good fit for this kind of a business,
right,
but we want to know the right procedure and the right order and make sure we're doing this the right way.
right.
At the fastest. Would it then
I
be
think the
continued to-
applicant was okay with postponing.
Postpone?
Yeah.
Okay,
So it would be continued to July 12th?
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
okay,
Yes.
we don't need
How
to
about
make a
that?
motion, we don't need to make a motion on it?
yes.
Yeah, we do need to make a motion to
Okay, make a
continue.
motion that we continue, or postpone, or continue.
Continue.
Continue case 22-100-5 to the next meeting, July 12th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like that feels better. We want to find a way to yes. Okay, we're ready for a vote.
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Michelle,
Yes.
Commissioner Nesbitt,
Yes,
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Chairman McLean.
Yes. Case number 22-100-05, rezoning of 8712 Winter Road has been continued to July 12th, 2022.
Good work. That's the right
It was
move.
good, it's good discussions. Okay. Case number 22-175-01, UDO amendment number 53, mini storage special use permit. City, will you give us this 1 minute? Oh, sorry. Report, please.
Thank you. Jordan had spent a lot of time putting this together, and unfortunately, he was not able to be here today. So I'm going to do my best to do his report, and hopefully I don't mess it up. So interestingly enough, this kind of relates to the topic that we've been talking about today in terms of different types of uses in C2, C3. So we've actually been approached by people over the last year and a half or so requesting the ability to do indoor storage in some of the strip centers, for example, that are in C2 zoning for indoor storage. Currently, right now in our code, those C2 or those storage units are only allowed in a C3 or an I1 district. And as some of you may see, there are some indoor storage units that can be fairly attractive. And so the intent with this was to take a look at our storage unit ordinance and see how we can make some updates to potentially allow those uses to take some of these underused properties and be able to convert them without having to do a zone change. Because like I said, in some of these cases that we've been inquiring about, these are commercial zonings where C3 just really wouldn't make any sense at all. And so, but indoor storage isn't something that necessarily is going to impact the exterior. And in fact, it could just be the opposite. It might actually make an improvement to the building exterior. So that is what has spurred staff's intent with this particular proposed UDO amendment. And that is basically to take the section of our particular code right now, which is 14200E, that talks about storage. And I'll kind of go through some of the changes that we present in here and be able to allow in a C2 district a special use permit for the purpose of an indoor storage. So that's really what started this, and then we started looking at the rest of the code in terms of the definitions, and then wanting to add some design standards to that if that type of project were ever to be presented to us. One of the changes that we wanted to make was, right now in our code we do call it residential storage warehousing, which is a little confusing for some. What exactly does that mean? Most of the time when we think about storage, we just talk about like self-storage, and so we wanted to change under that section 14200-06, the definition of what that means is self-storage facilities, indoor and outdoor. We do not currently have a designation for indoor and outdoor storage. It's just that one residential storage warehouse. So we wanted to separate that out to add some clarity to the code. Going down 14200-01, that's the definitions. We didn't really make too many changes to the definitions, but we did kind of simplify it and wanted to make sure that for self-storage facilities, whether it's indoor or outdoor, that we made sure that it was clear that for storage units, they weren't intended to be used for any type of office use or repair use or any other type of workshops or anything of that nature. So we did clarify the definitions in that section 14200-01. As we go down 14300-01-3, that's the chart, that's the use chart that we outline in C2, C3, and I1, where again in C2, we're changing that to allow indoor storage with a special use permit, and then of course requiring both C2, C3, and I1 with the conditional use, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the specifications that we have updated or wanted to include in this ordinance change. And so for 14400 or 14423, that's when we get into the what we're going to basically be calling specifications for these different storage types. So self-storage, indoor storage. We've added some of the specifications that no activities can be carried out inside the structure. No outside storage is allowed on those particular premises. Individual storage units for the indoor have to be located within the facility and only accessible from internal corridors. And so that's kind of important to make sure we don't have any exterior doors that have access to these storage units. And of course, we wanted to make it very clear that these storage units cannot be used for living quarters or places of business. As far as design standards for the actual building, so if we were to actually get a project submitted for this for an internal storage, they would still need to meet the non-residential design standards in 14506. The facilities have to be designed to where they're entirely self-contained. And as I mentioned, no storage units on the exterior newly constructed buildings must meet four-sided architecture. Now for this 14423-01-C, this is the section that we added for the special use permit for indoor storage in a C2 district. We do make this subject to the special use permit that is currently in place under section 14704. And this is basically the same special use permit criteria that you use for any special use permit. And then again, as I mentioned, we wanted to clarify the difference between indoor and outdoor. And so for outdoor storage units, again, we want to make sure that there's no activities carried out inside a unit and that no living quarters or places of business are there. We did also add the outdoor vehicle storage with some specifications. We wanted to make sure we had some clarification on that as well. And again, this is where the outdoor storage units that do have vehicle storage, those vehicles have to be in operational conditions. We wanted to make sure it wasn't intended to be able to hold vehicles that are not in good order. We do put some standards in here that the setback has to be at least 25 feet from the right-of-way line, and they can't have any storage in any required buffer or landscaping zones. So we also did include for any of these outdoor storage the screening viewed from the streets right away, public properties, or any abutting residential zoning districts, and that is, of course, subject to our section 14503, which is our buffering and landscape ordinance. And we did want to make sure that in those outdoor storage units that it is a dust-free material, including asphalt, concrete, or any kind of masonry or approved surface. And that's really kind of in a nutshell what this ordinance is and what the updates are. And so with that, I will take any questions you may have.
Question?
Madam Chair. Rick, so basically, if we approve this, are all the older ones grandfathered, or will they have to start redoing, coming up to code?
So this doesn't necessarily fall to any of the existing storage units. We're looking at this for primarily for those new, whether it be outdoor vehicle storage and or the indoor storage for redevelopments in C2 districts.
Okay, so basically, everybody else is grandfathered in, so they'll have to.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just looking at the two tables. So for commercial, just to clarify, C2 is indoor storage facilities will be allowable with a special use permit under C2.
Correct.
And both indoor and outdoor will be allowed under C3 with conditional.
Correct. It's currently allowed under C3, but we did add those conditions. Okay. Yes.
And then on the industrial side, the outdoor and indoor are only allowed in the I-1 as a conditional.
Correct.
Okay. Those are the only questions I had.
It's a lot of work.
There's a lot of code sections that had to be cross-referenced.
Yeah, I've heard people talk about this for a long time and how the codes just weren't really conducive to some of the newer in-storage plans, whatever it's called.
Well, and as multifamilies become more and more popular, storage is becoming more and more of a attractive business option for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
And I would certainly rather see a nice indoor storage facility than these outdoor
Yeah, I agree.
ones that are littered across the city right now.
And generally, it feels like they take up a smaller footprint.
Do we have to have a public hearing on this, or? No.
Yeah, this is a public
Oh,
hearing.
it is a public hearing?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Did you open the public hearing?
No. Well,
Just open
I mean,
it.
yeah, it was, it was just open, it was their next
Okay.
case, so yes,
Okay.
yeah,
I just
okay,
want- I just want to make sure that we did that.
yeah. Is there anyone here who would like to speak for this case? Is there anyone here who would like to speak against this case? Hearing none, public portion of this case is closed. Commissioners, any other questions, comments, observations?
No, Madam Chair, make a motion.
Thank you.
I make a motion, we accept 22175-01 to amend the UDO code number 53.
I second.
Thank you. We are ready for a vote.
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Michelle,
Yes.
Commissioner Nesbitt,
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Chairman McLean.
Yes. Case number 22-175-01, UDO Amendment Number 53 has passed. Next case. The next case is 22-310-02, Preliminary Plat, Little Blue Estates, Jackson Drive and Necessary Road, Kevin Stallings, D&D Development. Staff, will you give us a report, please?
We're looking here at the first slide, the vicinity map. As you can see where the red oval is, we're talking about an area just north of the developing Prairie Landing development, north of Necessary Road, that no longer connects into Holkey, but you have the new Jackson Drive that comes down there to the west, and the future Quail Drive wrapping around the Little Blue Elementary, as you can see there, to the north of this property. So this is a large part of this is a large field, although it's sort of hidden. You've got very thick woods there along the existing old Necessary Road, as well as a steep grade and topography going down from the west there, from Jackson Drive. This is, excuse me, this is an area that's dominantly single-family residential. As you can see, it's the only zoning that's around this particular development, with, of course, school and church uses being allowed uses within the R6 zoning. And of course, that adheres to the comprehensive plan, which envisions residential neighborhoods in this area. And here, this photo is a little clearer. You can see the development to the south that's pretty much filled out, and how it can be accessed by two roads out of that addition, as well as potentially from the north, from Quail Drive, that the right-of-way wraps around the north end or wraps around the school toward the north end of this development. Here is the preliminary plat for the proposed Little Blue Estate, a three-phase project that will consist of 89 single-family lots and 2 common lots. Tract A, which is up in the northwest corner of this preliminary plat would be the location of the community swimming pool, and you'll note that it also has a small parking lot there as well. Tract B, which is going to be that large property on the southeast, just north of Necessary Road, would provide the necessary stormwater detention basin. The applicant states that the single-family residential lots will contain homes with a price point between $450,000 and $550,000. Footprints for the homes will range from 1,500 to 1,800 square feet. Models will include reverse 1.5 stories, ranch models, and as well as 2-story models. Phase 1 of the development will consist of lots 1 through 43 and track A and B. Phase 2 of the subdivision will include lots 44 through 65. And lastly, phase 3, which is the more eastern of the lots, or phases will involve lots 66 through 89. And homes association with covenants and restrictions will be formed to ensure the maintenance of the development's common elements, which are essentially those 2 tracks and any signage, and the integrity of the development. So I will go through the pictures and then go through our recommendation. So this is way to the north, looking at the new or I say relatively new, Little Blue Elementary. It lies south, or the proposed development would lie south of this property. I'm standing in Quail Drive here, which runs east-west, but then is proposed to run north-south around the east side of the building. This is looking on Quail Drive back toward Jackson Drive to the west. This is Jackson Drive looking northward. That little church that's there where Holkey comes into Jackson Drive on this hilltop location. And there's Holkey right there. And looking down Jackson Drive to the left, this is a short walk down that sidewalk and looking down into this proposed development location. It would be over this embankment, and it would be that valley right there. And this is a little bit more obscure. And that's just more of the distant areas. And this is Prairie Landing. So the subdivision would run up to the backside of this. A Necessary Road runs east and west right in front of us, in front of those houses, and terminates right now at down at the bottom of this embankment. And here's where it terminates. Looking back up that grade that you can see there, one of the existing houses on one of the 2 accesses onto Necessary Road, which would provide access to this development from the south. And this is Old Necessary Road that only outlet is this other, believe it's Eagle. No, yeah, Eagle Court. Necessary dead ends east of here and doesn't go all the way to the new Little Blue Parkway. So this is looking south down Eagle Court, where the remaining lots that have yet to be fully developed out, the few that are left in this phase of Prairie Landing, still exist. And this is, I just started walking into the property on this little path from the southeast. And this is half a block into the property there, so. Staff recommends approval of this preliminary plat, subject to the conditions listed below. Number one, addresses will be assigned at the final plat stage. Indicate on the final plats the locations of all subdivision entrance signage. Provide dimension lines for all the lines on the final plats. Include the dimension basin tract as part of phase one of the development. Phase one is actually to the west. So that would be physically somewhat removed. Remove side improvement, and that probably should say graphics, except for sidewalks from the final plat. Number 6, with phase one, necessary roads shall be improved to a 24-foot wide pavement with 4-foot shoulders. Number 7, with phase one, Quail Drive shall be extended south into the development after curving around Little Blue Elementary. Number 8, with phase one, include a set of covenants and restrictions to ensure the maintenance of the development's common elements and integrity of the development. So therefore, with those recommendations, staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat. Right, take any questions you may have.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions before we bring the applicant up?
I do. Your number 4, included detention basin tract as part of phase one development. I'm looking at, and maybe it's just a labeling issue, I'm looking at page 1 of 3 in your, of the HG Consult drawings. And is it just that it's not labeled that way? Because it looks like phase one is immediately adjacent to the detention tract. And that was tract B. So tract A and tract B would both be part of the first phase.
Yeah, you are correct. I stand corrected. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I confused myself.
But the intent would be that the tract A and tract B, the amenity tract and the detention, those would be part of the first phase. So presumably then all the roads are being built at the beginning. That was unclear to me. Yeah, your description says phase one of the development will consist of lots 1 through 43, tract A and tract B.
Yes.
Okay.
So yes, all roads will be built at that time?
So that they can access the pool at tract A?
I mean,
That
that's
wasn't
what
the
you're-
intent.
that's what
I
you're-
don't think that was the intention. If
Well, that's what you're recommending, is that that be done, correct?
Maybe a better question for the applicant. But I'm trying to get to the heart of the conditions.
I was going to say, the intentions is to make sure that the detention pond and the amenities are part of the phase one. That would most likely mean that at least a good portion of the roadway infrastructure would have to be in place.
Okay. We can clarify that with the applicant. Thank you.
Or does say Quail Drive, a necessary road in phase one,
Mm-hmm.
on 6 and 7?
Correct.
Okay, let's bring the applicant up. I think
Okay.
that'll be good. So applicant, if you don't mind coming up and state your full name and address, please.
Absolutely. Name is Kevin Stallings, 5282 Northeast Ash Grove Court, Lee Summit, Missouri is where I live. This project came to me about a year ago. Mayor Ware, former Mayor Ware, brought it to me, and Independence School District had a need for housing for school teachers that was affordable. And so I kind of dove into it. If you guys are familiar with Stone Canyon, that's my development. We did that. We've down to the last 2 houses, and it's almost done. I'll be back in about 2 years with phase 4 of that development, and I'll talk to you then about that. But on this project, met with Dale, and he told me one of the main concerns that teachers moving here are trying to attract talented teachers to teach within the independent school district is they wanted a development that had a pool. It's a simple request, and I said, I think I can handle that. So we dove into the project, we drew the plans up, and the idea is to try to keep the housing as affordable as possible. So I'm going to do something that a few developers in the Kansas City metro area are doing. I'm going to develop and build every one of them, no outside builders. We're going to start with lot 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and build them in substantial. The reason is to control the dirt, control the material, control the project. Try to keep the costs down. We're also going to take a stab at it, reduce commission in there, and try to set it up where nobody's sitting on site. But my agent, Elizabeth, who's here tonight, is going to be taking phone calls and allowing agents to go in and show the houses. But our idea is to try to keep the costs down so the teachers can actually afford it. We got a perspective from Dale that there's a lot of teachers there that are administrative. Those people will have no problem affording this development. And teachers that have a secondary income, let's say their spouse works somebody else or somewhere else, has an income of about $75,000 to $85,000 a year, should be able to afford housing like this. It is set up to go with phase 1 would be by the retention pond and put that in first. At the start of phase 2, we will start working on the pool, or actually probably about halfway through phase 2. We'll start working on the pool, and the pool will be done before we start phase 3. That is my current plan, because most developments, you don't do the pool out of the gate. You try to generate funds, pay down that loan at the bank, and that's kind of the perspective on it. And I'm trying to keep it all in town. Blue Ridge Bank and Trust has agreed to go ahead and finance the deal, as long as everything comes in as suspected. So that's kind of the project in general. And what questions do you have for me?
Do you want to ask a question? Or do you want me to?
Is that a good question to ask?
No, I think it is.
Basically, kind of just have a question of, so the district owns this property? And
School district.
the school district purchased this property?
They've owned it for some time.
Okay, and so anything dealing with the school board and like approvals of like, we're gonna put houses here, all that's been approved of?
Yep,
with
it was
the-
appraised, it was put out there. I'm the only one who, I beat the down payment on it, I purchased it, so they followed all the protocol that needs to be done.
So, but it's still currently under ownership of the
It's
school
under
district?
contract, I closed end of October.
Okay. Is that contingent upon approval of this?
Yes.
Okay. So, but your intention, I'm just going to come back to your statement, your intention is for track B truly to be part of phase 2?
The pool?
The pool?
Yes, it's going to be
Track B.
part of phase 2.
Okay.
So typically, most developments that I've ever done, you don't do it to the second, third phase toward the end. Once you've got your bank note paid down, then you put the funds toward that. I mean, the pool used to be about $250,000, but with price escalation, it's probably going to be about $400,000 just to do the pool. So we're going to add a little spin on it. We're actually going to do golf cart parking right at the pool, because it's okay that you can own a golf cart in Independence as long as it's street legal. So figure we put a little twist on there. I did that in my last development. People love it.
Is that Stone Canyon?
Yeah, yeah.
My question is going to be is that you say 450 to 500,000 for school teachers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was just I don't see that happening for school teachers. I mean, that's quite a bit. I mean, I don't know how much school teachers make, but that just still seems quite a bit for their price range. But I mean, especially for a 1,500 to 1,800 square foot house.
Mm-hmm.
So that just seems a little overpriced, but I mean, that's the market, but I'm just saying that's what I see.
So we thought the same thing. So me and Elizabeth, her mortgage person, and went and sat down with Dale, Independent School District, and said, all right, before we get too far down the weeds and I spend too much money, I want to find out, are they really going to be able to do this? Now, an entry-level teacher is anywhere from 35 to 45. So an entry-level teacher, unless they have a lot of down payment money gifted to them or whatever, probably not going to be able to afford this. However, a teacher's been in the school system, let's say close to 10 years, their medium income is coming around 60, 65. If they have a spouse that, let's say, manages an AutoZone or a restaurant or something like that, their salary is going to be up closer to 100. Those two combined can qualify to purchase a house 450 to 550. There are over 100 administrators in the independent school district that all make over 6 figures. They alone can afford to buy this house without their spouse income. Not to mention, I've heard some rumors that you guys got a lot of potential infrastructure coming down through the valley, and they're going to need housing as well.
Well, I'm a little worried about that because this is going to overlook the valley, correct?
Well, and that sits down in the valley. It actually, if you were to walk the property right now, you wouldn't be able to see Little Blue.
Right, because of the trees. That's another thing I was going to question. Are we leaving the tree borders, or are you guys going to take them?
I'm leaving I'm a tree hugger, even though I kill them to make houses. I
Right.
understand that. But I'm leaving as much of the trees as I possibly can.
Okay, now how much buffer zone, I guess, between necessary road, I guess, and are you leaving down in there for trees? I know Brian talked about the trees that back in there.
Yes, well, I propose that we removed Old Necessary Road and just give that green space to both developments, but we decided to go ahead and leave it, and we're going to improve that road. So the trees butting up to Necessary on both sides of Necessary, a good portion of those, the first 10 to 15 feet are going to be left. So
Okay.
I will probably thin the smaller ones out, allowing the bigger ones a chance to grow and get bigger. Between Jackson and Phase 3 right there, that's a huge bluff that goes up 50, 60 feet. So all those trees on that bluff, that'll stay. Those are not going to go anywhere. The trees between the school and the development, on the school property, there's quite a few trees that are sitting there. So again, 15, 20 feet into the property and everything that goes to the school, that'll be there. The part that you'll be able to see mostly is the stuff that looks over towards the Little Blue right there.
Right.
But there's a high school that's slotted to be built there in the future once the demand for education is needed.
Oh, so Independence is going to keep the property to the east, I guess.
It's got a high school building planned for it, baseball fields, football fields, it's all planned. Problem is you don't have enough students in that area.
For that area.
So I talked to Jim. I know Jim Thorpe's got a development going on as well, and actually got a few. And the more developments we bring in there, the more necessary it's going to be for that high school. The problem that Dale told me is they're having trouble attracting really quality teachers because they don't have the housing to put for them. And another thing that I think you guys passed some time ago is the housing credit for childcare. I believe it's, and don't quote me on this, it's $880 a month per kid for qualified teachers living within the school district. So you get 2 kids, that's almost a mortgage payment.
Right. My next question is going to be then on the road sidewalks. I see you say except sidewalks. Are we putting sidewalks on necessary?
Shouldn't be.
No, not unnecessary.
Well, here's the question. Okay, so we're putting this development in, and the big thing is always get sidewalks to the schools, and we're not going to put sidewalks. And
Oh, that's on Quail.
That's on Quail?
Yeah, that's on. And yes, we're going to run a sidewalk down Quail to the school so the kids can walk to school every day.
Okay, and how about, okay, so basically you're saying there, what I was wondering then also is up on Jackson. Is there a sidewalk on Jackson? I couldn't remember.
There is.
Okay,
Big, wide
okay, so that's what I
bike
want to make sure. Okay.
sidewalks.
Goes right by that church down to there.
Well, I know all the new roads you put in will have to have sidewalks on them.
Right,
So
right.
I was just worried about necessary having sidewalks, so. what
Right.
you got? So I'll just have curbs in, basically?
Not necessary. Necessary actually was originally envisioned to go away, so it wasn't improved by Prairie Landing to the south. So we're requiring just minimal improvements to it by
Well, he
this
mentioned
new
maybe
developer.
getting rid of necessary. Why are we not doing that then? Is there a reason why?
So that was discussed with municipal services as well, and really the consensus was so you do need 2 access points, but you also are going to have that necessary connection. And so the ideal is that people are going to end up using that connection between the 2 access points that are on the necessary road, and hence the reason to go ahead and leave it. And so the the discussions has been with the developer is to make that minimal improvements to two 12-lane sections, so mostly third north part would be asphalt improvements along with a 4-foot shoulder.
Okay, well then, okay, let's go back to here. He's talking about a high school. Would the high school, would that have to be road widened then if we're gonna have buses go down that? I mean, that's,
Well, Quail is wide enough to handle all that, and if you notice, Quail swings out, there's a parking lot, which that's the high school parking lot. So,
no, I'm not talking elementary. I'm talking, you're talking about proposed high school in the future. And I was thinking, is that the road to go down necessary to get to it?
Well,
No, no.
necessary is not a road that goes anywhere. I mean,
Okay,
all it does is
It goes
connect
nowhere?
two,
Okay.
two little streets. It's been cut off from going to Little Blue Parkway, and it does not connect with Jackson Drive, so it's basically a segment that goes nowhere.
Okay.
And so it's
a dead
just
end road.
it's just a
dead-end road.
local little segment.
Okay, it's just a dead-end road, in other words.
right.
Okay, and that, the school wouldn't use that in the future, that you think of? I mean,
It's probably going to get eliminated for the football fields and baseball fields because where that road goes out is actually floodplain.
okay,
And so you can't put a structure on it. So baseball fields, diamonds and stuff like that.
Right.
The main road for the elementary school, it comes across, what's that road in front of Quail, or in front of the school?
Jackson?
In front of the school, to the north is Quail, and Quail.
Oh, it's Quail Wides Road.
Quail
okay.
will curve around, so it's.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So Quail's in front, but also Quail as it comes down, it connects to the high school parking lot right there for the future high school. That's why that road swings out, is to get whoever's driving down to the high school to pull in. And they'll be coming off of Quail when they come to that anyway.
Okay. And you're gonna do a homeownership there?
Yep, same HOA restrictions that we refiled with Stone Canyon. We're going to modify and we're going to adapt them to Little Blue.
Okay. That's all I have.
No more questions? Any other questions?
Just real quick. So
one more.
the finances for this project are already sort of taken care of?
Blue Ridge Bank and Trust, I already met with the president, and they've done several other projects with me, and they like the project, so.
Okay.
So, nothing's permanent until you sign on the dotted line, you know that, but
Yeah.
they like it a lot, so much so that they called me the other day out of the blue going, hey, where's this project at? I'm like, well, I'm going to come see you guys tonight.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking, I mean, because our taxes go to the district, and then with the district owning the property and then having a major development put on it, if our taxes that go to the district end up being more for some reason, then I was just curious, so.
Well, you get 90 homes that are going to be built, and you get 90 homes of taxes, infrastructure that's going to go back to the city, schools,
Yeah.
fire department, police department. And that's another thing that we kind of thought that might be attractive. You got fire department, police department, you have your home heroes that are locally here, and they don't have hardly anything to pick from. There's no development in Independence right now that has a pool that you can buy and build in right now. So I figured, well, if the pool's the answer, let's build a pool.
A lot of them in Lee Summit.
There's a bunch of them, Lisa, and I've done a few, so.
Perfect.
But yeah, so you can say we're kind of starting out doing this for the teachers, but obviously I don't see 90 houses being bought up by all teachers. I see different, people purchasing there.
Exciting project.
What's that?
Exciting project.
I hope so.
All right, thank you.
Okay? Thank you.
Is there anyone here who would like to speak for this case? Is there anyone here who would like to speak against this case? Hearing none, the public portion of this hearing, of this case is closed. Any other questions for city or discussions, thoughts?
So basically we found out the pool is not in first phase or second, it's gonna be about third phase.
You said during the second phase,
Yeah,
at some point, during the second phase.
but that's not on his recommendations right now, are they?
No, I think that should be a
One of the recommended
condition
conditions?
for approval, that we just clarify that.
Okay, yeah.
Well, I think this is a great project. Like with the housing study that we've done, this is a product that we've been missing in Independence. And I will tell you, having 6 kids and all of their friends, I mean, the young professionals just can't find anywhere in Independence that they want to live, so they're all moving to Blue Springs and Lee Summit, which makes me sad. Green Valley, yep. And so I think this is a great project. It's very exciting and really kind of cool to think we might be big enough to have a 3rd high school. That's crazy. Yeah. That's really exciting. So I would entertain a motion or any more discussion. Okay.
Madam Chair, in the case of 22-310-02 preliminary plat for Little Blue Estates, I recommend for approval with the conditions as noted in the staff report, adding condition number 8 to clarify that tract B, the tract with the pool, will be part of phase 2 of the development.
Can I clarify? You mean number 9?
New item 9.
Yeah.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, we're ready for a vote.
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Michelle,
Yes.
Commissioner Nesbitt,
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Chairman McLean.
Yes. Case number 23-310-02 has been approved. Thank you and good luck. Okay, next case is 22-310-03, preliminary plat Timber Creek Ranch, 23500 East Bunchu Road, Jim Pollard and Doucher Pollard Construction.
Yes, this is an application for a preliminary plat for phases 3 through 6 for this Timber Creek Ranch. It's on the north side of Bunchu Road. The original rezoning occurred in almost 20 years ago in 2003, and then they came through with a preliminary plat about a year later that featured 160 single-family homes. And since then, they've done 2 final plats, the first one containing 41 lots, and the second 46 lots. And that right after that, the recession hit and development stopped. Now he's back with a slightly modified preliminary plat to finish out the subdivision since the previous plat expired. Phases 3 through 5 will contain 64 single-family lots, which each of the phases contain roughly 20 lots. They will be accessed by street stubs that are already existing in the subdivision. Phase 6 contains only 2 lots that fronts onto the short cul-de-sac of 10th Terrace, which extends north from Old Mill Road. The preliminary plat, as we'll see in a minute, also talks about future construction. Okay, we can look at the screen now. This is the general location of this project. It's out on Bunchu Road, just east of Regency Heights. That is actually up to 10th plat now. This is the surrounding zonings. You can see to the east of this, so there is agriculture, RA zoning, and then to the basically all other directions, it is single-family zoning of certain densities. The comprehensive plan recommends single-family, low-density zoning for this property. And this is the existing conditions, the aerial of, as you can see, the Bunchu Road is on the south. You have one road that comes up, which is Old Mill Road, and basically goes straight forward, and then it would cross over into the Regency Heights, which is under construction. We'll see in a minute. There's also the street that goes northeast from there, and it has houses along all 3 of those street stubs. Really, the area that we're talking about is the green, the dark area on the top. That's where the subdivision will be, the future phases. This is the plat. Actually, north is on the left, and excuse me, Bunchu Road is on the right. So you can see the the Old Mill Road comes up and crosses over into Regency Heights 10th, there on the First Street north of Bunchy Road. There's also a second connection that goes into Regency Heights 10th, just north of that. The phases for this project basically go in a clockwise fashion. It's 3rd, 4th, 5th, and then 6th is down to the southeast. This is, we're at the north end of Old Mill Road. This is where Timber Creek Ranch will transition into Regency Heights 10th Plat. You can see they're over there working on that right now. So these will connect together eventually. This is on the, we're on the east end, looking west actually on 12th Street at another connection into Regency Heights. And here is the north end of Holland Drive. This is one of the streets that will be continued to the north. The construction crews have been using this to access Regency Heights. This is the north end of Heartland Drive. There's a cul-de-sac. As you can see, there's, I don't want to say it's featureless landscape, but there's trees on the left and in the back, but most of the area is actually open field now. And this is the north end of Holland Drive. This is a temporary cul-de-sac that'll come out once the street gets connected. And this is a typical house. This is the last house on the end of Heartland Drive as it is now. Pretty typical house, pretty much a typical house for this subdivision. Some of the houses have three-car garages, some don't. Assortment of ranches and split levels and front to back splits, that sort of thing. And then this is the north end of Hanover Avenue, which is the easternmost street stub. That this temporary cul-de-sac will also go away and the street will continue to the north. And then this is the 6th phase. It's only 2 lots that come off this little street stub here. They'll put a cul-de-sac on the end of it, and they'll just have 2 really large lots at the end of this. Excuse me. Stormwater will be actually taken care of by the areas of floodplain there that flow down to the southwest through the middle of the subdivision. The city is requiring half-street improvements along the north side of Bunchy Road. Some of those improvements have been done partially already, and then we're requiring them to be completed. Water and sanitary sewer are available, and then will be connected through the site. Staff does recommend approval of this preliminary plat, subject to the following conditions. Addresses will be assigned during the final stage for each phase. Half-street improvements required for Bunchy Road in conjunction with the construction of Phase 3. Improvements will include road widening and installation of sidewalk. A stormwater report for the existing detention basin with all drainage areas will be required with the final plat. Existing detention shall meet current engineering criteria and discharge flows, or a due detention basin will be required. Show stream buffer on the final plat. This is a second order stream with a 105-foot buffer. The connection of Old Mill Road to Regency Heights is required, as 10th Street is also required. A set of water main extension plans will need to be submitted to the City Water Department for approval before any water main construction may begin. That's all I had.
Thank you. Okay. Any questions for City before we bring the applicant up? Okay. Will the applicant come forward, please? State your full name and address.
Good evening. My name is Todd Polk. I'm with CFS Engineers, 1421 East 104th Street, Kansas City, Missouri. I'm here tonight representing Jim Pollard. He couldn't be here tonight, unfortunately, because he's at a memorial service for a friend, so I'm standing in for him. We're excited that we're finally going to get this subdivision rolling again. Regency Heights connection is actually what's allowed that. We had developed as many lots as we could with a single entrance off of Bunshoe, and so until Regency Heights ever made the connection, we were just kind of in limbo. And so with their progress, so goes ours. So with the preliminary plat expiring, because we just couldn't do anything, we're just here renewing it and look forward to continuing the successful development. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions?
I have a question. What will the price point be for most of these houses?
I do not know the answer to that question. I'm just the civil engineer putting roads in.
I would guess they'd be somewhere in the 400s.
You think?
Okay. I have a question on, you mentioned, Stuart, Phase 6 being 2 large lots. There's also labeled Phase 6 farther to the north. The 2 large lots are on the southeast. On the northeast, there's Phase 6 also labeled. Is there anything planned there?
To the staff's credit, we had shown that originally on the original preliminary plat as future development, so that if any of that was not in the buffer zone and he could sell that to the property owner to the east, that we would reserve it for that. But as staff indicated, most of that's buffer zone, so there's really, it's just open space, kind of like everything else that runs down through that east side. And it'll offer us any opportunity if we do, as we do our storm drainage work, if we do find that we need to create more detention availability, that's a place where we can do that.
Okay, so the future to the sort of the parcels that are shown there within the limits of this property, that would not, realistically, that probably is not going to occur?
That's correct.
Okay. So that road system, the Blue Mills, kind of sweeps around and comes down into there, that doesn't currently exist and probably will not exist?
That's correct.
Does it make sense to remove that?
Yes, it does.
So that could be a condition that the applicant would not have a problem?
That's correct.
Okay.
Are you going to remember your words?
I will.
Thank you.
Probably.
Any
And you said that the Old Mill Road connection to Regency Heights, I believe, if I heard you correctly, that development there to the west of the west property line, that is occurring now?
Yes, that's the construction that was shown in that photo.
They're going to bring that road to that property line, you're going to connect
And
there.
then we'll close the gap.
Yeah, that's actually Old Mill Road, you see right there.
Understood. Sorry if I missed that.
Yeah, we want to publicly say to Jeff Wilkie, thank you for coming, meeting us halfway.
Jeff Wilkie is the developer of Regency Heights, Dan.
I don't have any other questions.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here who would like to speak for this case? Is there anyone here who would like to speak against this case? Hearing none, the public portion of this hearing is closed. Commissioners, any comments, questions of anybody further? I'll entertain a motion.
Do you mean to make a motion with a condition?
Yeah.
All right.
Because you wrote it.
In the matter of case 22-310-03 preliminary plat for Timber Creek Ranch, I move for approval with the conditions as listed in the staff report, amended with condition number 7, that the final plat removes all reference to future development and parcels on the east side within the property limits of the property and outside the property to the east.
Excuse me, did you want that removed from this preliminary plat? Because the final plat will not show that.
That's what I'm asking that it be removed from.
From this preliminary plat?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
That's my motion.
Second.
Okay. Counselor, did you get that? That's good. Okay, we're ready for a vote.
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Michelle,
Yes.
Commissioner Nesbitt,
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Chair McLean.
Yes. Case number 22-310-03, preliminary plat, Timber Creek Ranch, has passed. Thank you, and thank you everyone for coming tonight. Roundtable, next meeting is July 12th